Americans have a criminal history. They have a criminal nation. The nation is built on criminality and murder and exploitation. It is a part of their collective psyche. The United States is a mafia government. No one has done more damage and degradation and murder, rape, and robbery than Europeans. Yes. Therefore, in order to escape confrontation with their true criminal nature, they must accuse others of being criminals. What we call projection. They must become obsessed with the criminality of other people. And black folk become those other people, you see. What does Clinton Cox say? You called the Indians savages so you could behave toward them what? Savagely. That's the function of stereotyping, you see. If I call you a criminal, then I can treat you what? Criminally. I don't owe you justice. In fact, shooting you in the street is justice. We know you are already a criminal. Why should we bother to take you to trial? Yes, that's what it is. We're doing a service. We're saving the taxpayers' money. What have we lost? A criminal? What are you complaining about? Yeah, this is the deal. What does it mean then? When you can become, then often people, in order to escape certain problems, become obsessed with other issues to the point where they don't have time or the energy or anything else to think about anything else. They don't see anything else. So I can forget my self-hatred. I can forget my self-alienation if I concentrate on how much I love myself. But this is a bad kind of love, you see. It's not the right kind of love. If I concentrate on what? How great I am. If I concentrate on making other people see what? How great I am. You see. And therefore, my 24 hours a day, I'm obsessed by projecting my what? Greatness. And I will, but that greatness is coming out of what? Hatred and inferiority. And since I'm greater than everyone else, I must make everyone else superior. What? Inferior to me. In fact, I can only love people who attest to my superiority. I can only love a woman who 24 hours a day maintains my superior ego and states that she is in need of leadership and guidance. And I'm her leader. I may be emasculated in the world, but in my house, I'm the king. And at any moment she indicates that I have feet of clay, I shall use them to stomp her. Yeah, this is the kind of thing we have here. Yeah, and it goes the other way too. You know, make me a goddess and lay at my feet all kinds of sacrifices. Yeah, yeah, live through me. And any moment that you don't hold this up, I'm going to react with anger and call you all kinds of names and problems. That's the issue of narcissism. Then you have the phallic character. Flaunts his masculinity through success at work or conquest over women, constantly seeking confirmation of his potency. Identifies himself with his penis. Ultimately, though, ladies and gentlemen, this is a man who's afraid of castration, who really thinks his balls have already been cut out from under him. Therefore, he needs a constant confirmation that he has them. Kind of reminds me again of the black and white video. What was that boy trying to grab down there between his legs? What are so many black men grabbing that all the time out there? Yes, seeing if it's there. Yeah, where is it? In other words, then, that relationship can move into a master-slave kind of relationship. A relationship that tries to use and exploit other people. A relationship that, in a sense, duplicates the social relationship that the man has. Don't worry about it. It'll be all right. And then you have people then who have a problem with lovability and are in constant need of reassurance. So what does this all imply? We don't have time to go into it all. What does it all imply? What does it roll out to be? It means then that if we are to transform the relationship between black males and black females and transform the nature of black life, period, we must transform the American system itself. Yeah, you can't get around that. Oh yeah, we have to if we are going to say that living in America, being black in America, creates a good deal of the problems that we have, then we must change America as a part of changing what? The problems. Now, it doesn't mean that we focus outside of ourselves, because one of the best ways of changing America is by what means? Changing ourselves. I've told you before that we are not only the creation of whites, we also create them. That they cannot be what they are unless we are what we are. And therefore, if we engage in self-transformation, we engage in the transformation of the nation and ultimately in the transformation of the world. This is what I'm saying again about an African-centered education. That more deeply than all, in terms of an African-centric education, is that we are not creating a revolution in America as much as we are creating a revolution in ourselves. But that revolution in ourselves is a revolution in America. And that's why we look at ourselves and transform ourselves. It means then that we must gain a perception of what is real. Maladaptive behaviors flow from the inability to operate in terms of what is real in the world. Where are we as African people? What is our real history? What is the real nature of this social system? And how does that reality intrude into our lives? We must come to know ourselves. If we do not know ourselves, we lose control of ourselves. We don't know why and for what reason we behave as we do. We must exercise control over ourselves. We must come to esteem ourselves and accept ourselves. To a good extent, the problems that we talk about all the time are problems that flow from people avoiding themselves, escaping their real selves, and creating mechanisms and machinations to facilitate their escape from themselves, and using other people and abusing other people in their escape from self-acceptance, in their escape from their real African selves as a people. And therefore, if we're going to stop abusing and using other people and using them as objects and so forth, then we must come back into self-acceptance and come back into reality. We must gain the ability to form affectionate relationships. And ladies and gentlemen, the ability to love and how to love is taught. In this system, we are taught that it's something that occurs accidentally and spontaneously. That is not true. Even romantic love, with all of its shivers up and down your spine, and all of this business about you can't eat and you can't sleep, and you toss and turn all night and all that kind of stuff. All of that's taught. You've been listening to the music all the time, haven't you? It's told you how you should feel when you're in love. Right? Isn't that what it says? Oh, I think about him all the time. I can't sleep. Oh, you're in love. Not necessarily. You may be addicted. Pun unintended. You may be addicted in the sense that you are using this person, this relationship, to escape your reality, to get away from yourself. You see? And to the degree that they can be used for you to escape who you are and what you are. To that degree, you feel good in their presence. You feel euphoric. You can't live without them, because without them you go into withdrawal. You see? And you begin to face the craziness of your condition. And you begin to face the real pain that is at the root of your escape in the first place. And you can't cold turkey and live through it and come to know what's really behind it, you see. So you reach out again for another rush, for another person. And promiscuity increases, infidelity increases. And even when you're married, you're still showing your butt and carrying on as if you're not married, you see. And you can't rest. You need the admiration of men and the admiration of women. Still, you know, it just goes on and it's endless. They can't be good enough for you. You seek perfection. You seek excitement, because that's in excitement you forget about reality. And you have good men. I run into too many good men out here. Educated men, good salaries, loyal men, I'm telling you, who are being rejected by women, black women. Don't make this game appear that it's only black men who are rejecting black women. There are many women out there, they want this perfect person.
Yes, sir.
You see, this exciting person, this black white man. You see. And a good black man is too boring and uninspiring. Or else you say, well, let me keep you out there for a while and I'll come back for you later. You know, this kind of thing. And it goes what? The other way. So we must learn that love is taught. Children are taught to love. That's another thing that African-centered education teaches, you see. Love and affection. That's another reason why we want to take these young men to this. How do you love a woman? What is real love? What is the difference between real love and addiction, and the real love and use and abuse of a woman? You see. How do you love yourself first so that you don't use a woman to support your own perceived self as a person, you see? And often it's difficult sometimes unless you can get them by themselves, because see, in the middle of women, often they got to show off a bit. They can't come to terms with themselves, you see. And sometimes you got to take them out there and see what it is. What is this game called America? What is this game called love anyway? Where did you get that word from? How did love develop? What is the history of love? Do you know there's a history to love? That Europeans were taught love, and love was defined and written in books, and ultimately taught by the ruling classes to the lower classes. And then it became a basis for marriage and the whole thing. Let's examine this before we talk about how much we love and don't love each other. What is this thing called love anyway? Where does it come from? Why is this essence that says it's irrational? You know, we got to look at that. But most of all, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to reclaim our African identity and our African selves, and we've got to free our African mind. Thank you very much.
Hold on, brothers and sisters. I see everybody thoroughly enjoyed the lecture, so you have something to work with when you get by the water cooler this week. Now,
one does not gain spiritual clarity or deep spiritual understanding without self-knowledge. As a matter of fact, the root to healthy spirituality is through self-knowledge. Because ultimately, you see, even though we put the emphasis on self, as I said earlier, that in getting to know who we are as a self, ultimately means getting to know how our self came into being. Which means that a deep sense of self-knowledge means getting to know the world and the principles by which self is created, which of course then brings us into an examination of those who are our creators and those people who interacted with the nature of the world that we live in. And ultimately, to get to know ourselves, we in a sense have to even step outside of ourselves at that point and enter into another consciousness. And to me, that entering into that consciousness becomes a cosmic consciousness, you see, where we see the self not as separated from the world, not as individually demarcated from the world, but as a part of the total cosmic atmosphere, as a part of the great oneness with the Spirit, or with God, if you will. I do not believe that people who are engaged in self-hatred and who are separated from themselves and who have not truly come to know themselves can truly come to know God. They will be soul things. You saw that thing here the other night on, was it Prime Time? Where the preachers were rooking these people off. Some of them getting much as, what, $1 million or more a day? Millions and millions of dollars. People who are being deceived by the Jimmy Swaggarts and the other people of the world, and yet they're being deceived in terms of their spirituality. But one, to me, of the hallmarks of spirituality is enlightenment and clarity, and the ability to discern reality and to look through a good deal of chicanery. You see? And to me, to be taken again and again and again and to be misused in the name of religion means that one needs to re-examine what that religion and spirituality is about. This too often is sold to African American people purely as a feeling, you see, and some kind of body feeling, and it's measured. And you know, I've told you before that you can't equate good feelings and even unusual feelings with necessarily being possessed by God. You can confuse those two things. In fact, the devil will trick you by representing himself as what? God. You see? And I've also mentioned to you before here to remember one thing, that Africans did not come to this country as Christians. Now that hurts a lot of people's feelings. But you must understand that Africans did not come to this country as Christians. It's very important to understand that. Where did Africans learn, particularly African Americans, this Christianity from? Even if you said you found it, the kind you learned is still not what you found it. Yeah. Where did you learn it from? Who taught it to you? And for what reason did they teach it to you? You got to keep that in mind. Even though you may be sincere in your worship of Christ, and no one questions that, and no one questions Christ. All right, I want you to understand that. That does not mean, though, that your sincerity cannot be used as a base to manipulate you against yourself and to manipulate you against your people. You're still obligated to know self and to understand self and to know the world and to understand the world as a part of your spiritual development. You understand? And therefore, we have too many people who are caught up in the church who still divorce, who still fight, who still do all the other things that we talk about here. When I look at the Anita Hill and what's her name, Judge Thomas deal, here you have a misplaced morality going on there. But to me, it's the epitome of the way white folk want morality to work among black folk. Her concern with morality ultimately working itself away in a way that it still maintains the system and maintains dissension within her ethnic group, which is the reason why it was taught, by the way. Now let's look at the other end that you're speaking of here. The second part, having to deal, it was on my mind just that fast. It went down. The other thing is, when you're separated from yourself, You're separated from your real self. You're separated from your potential. And there's a vacuum created, and there's also a pain created as well. A vague feeling of discomfort and dis-ease that's extremely discomforting. The individual then must relieve this pain and must relieve this emptiness that has occurred as a result of being separated from who he or she really is. The individual asks who he or she really is and somehow must arrive at an answer. When other people who rob you and separate you from yourself, and this is the essence of brainwashing, you see, to separate the individual from his identity, to make him uncomfortable, to make him confused, to make him suffer pain, and say, now, if you think about yourself this way, if you see yourself this way, if you assume that this is who you are, you will come together again and you will be healed, or you will be at one with yourself. In this way, then, a false and artificial identity is placed within the person. And the person will often identify with that input or that false introjected soul. And because it brings them a certain amount of comfort, or because they see it as protecting them against destruction or annihilation and so forth, they will cling to it and see it as a part of themselves. And in this sense, then, blacks have been made to think to a good extent that by escaping their African self and trying to deny their color and trying to escape African culture and so forth, we have opened ourselves up to being implanted with a white demon. And it is that white demon in us that manipulates our bodies and manipulates our minds. It is one of the reasons why we lose self-control. We say things that we know we shouldn't be saying, but we can't help ourselves. We eat things that we know we shouldn't be eating, but the appetite is out of control, you see. And if you look at what you say, if you look at what you eat, if you look at what you desire, you will see all those things that you eat, that you desire, that you want, are things that maintain and enrich white folk. It means then that the demon that's implanted in the place of the real African self is a demon that works for its creator. You see, and it works to maintain its creator in a place of domination. That is why the process of reclaiming our African selves and coming back to ourselves is a process of exorcising devils. And that is the reason why a reclamation of ourselves is a reclamation of health, a reclamation of self-control, and a reclamation of love, and a reclamation of positive relations between black men and black women, and between ourselves and the world. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Last week I was listening to LIB, and Sharpton spoke on the very same thing you're talking about. He was talking about Magic Johnson and his family. And he was saying that just to practice safe sex is not enough, because Hollywood is not interested in building the black family. And he's saying that not only safe sex, but to, brothers who are married, and sisters as well, not to be promiscuous. He's saying that once we understand that who the black woman is, and she has to be protected because she's another civilization.
And it cries out for social transformation in our community as well. Because that disease, it startles my class often when I tell people you must recognize that disease is not only a biological entity, but it is also a sociological entity. It is a political entity. These diseases and the way they operate in the world also reflect political formations or the absence of political formations, you see. And it implies a social structure. So if you got a social structure caught up with drugs and other kinds of things, you will see that disease visiting this kind of social structure in a way that it would not in another social structure and cultural structure. So in the end, again, these things cry out for a transformation of African cultures, we see it in African American cultures, we see it today, and he cries out for a transformation of political structures as well as economic structures in the black community.
One more question.
Okay.
We have time for one more?
Yes, I do, buddy.
So,
I think, yes. You spoke earlier about the confusion that the multi-cultural curriculum is going to cause in our community.
Excuse me, brother, can you speak a little louder, please?
You spoke earlier about the confusion that the multicultural curriculum is going to cause in our community. Should we have an expectation that the public school system or the school system that we're sending our kids through is going to prepare them or educate them in order to take their dominant position?
Certainly, you know, Diane Ravitch, we're all familiar with Diane, of course, who sort of started this whole mess off with Leonard. Diane Ravitch, though, is an avowed multiculturalist. And in fact, when Jeffries reviewed, if you look at the Jeffries statement, he's reviewing already a multicultural curriculum. It is the comments of Jeffries about its inadequacies and so forth that is the issue, more than the idea that he's creating one or promoting one and so forth. So in a sense, New York State had already began the process on a certain level, an inadequate one, but the idea of a so-called multicultural curriculum was already there. And in a sense, the evaluation that Jeffries did along with the others was really an evaluation in terms of the inadequacy of that pre-existing curriculum, not a desire to just necessarily bring it into being, but saying, you've tried, but it's inadequate, your books are inadequate, this, you know, this and so forth is inadequate. What am I saying here then? I say that we forget one fundamental rule, and I may be two, and that is one thing, that whites never intend to turn black folk loose from the subordinate position. You can dream and wish all you want to, and you can get caught up in all this craziness that these white folk one day are going to hand this world over to you and let you operate as equal to them. You got to be out of your mind to believe that. As Bell LaFrere says, the idea that the oppressor, because let me tell you, at the point that whites do not need us, they are going to rid themselves of us. And their need is one of subordination. There's every intention by this society to maintain the subordination of black people till time ends, or if they no longer lead black people, to destroy black people. The Indian is a prime example of that. The Indian was destroyed because the Indian was of no economic value to white folk. You know, and I say that because a lot of us think we're just here because we prayed hard to Jesus. I'm telling you, we're here too because we're of economic value. The white man didn't ship us over here just to kill us, you know. We had economic value for this man. And now, when it gets to the point where our value is greatly decreased, and it's already beginning to occur, you're dealing with what? QEA, is that what they call it? Quality Education Act. What these white folk are saying here in New Jersey is that you are not worth the investment. Now, they don't need to invest in black schools. They are hiring people. I've told some group here about McGraw-Hill in Hillsdale, New Jersey, that has all of this circulation work being done in Ireland. It's the computers and stuff that do the work about the circulation of some 16 magazine is being done in Ireland on computers, and the information is sent directly to the mainframe here. They do not have to hire in New Jersey to get people to input computerized information. And this is a trend that's rapidly developing. They hire people in the Philippines and so forth. The idea is now that they can hire from around the world and they can import into this country what they need. They import now close to 1 million people a year to fill in the gaps that they need in this system. And now the idea that they're going to invest money into black people whom they've convinced cannot learn is one you better wake up to, and it's occurring right in front of your face, right here. You understand? So what am I saying here then? The idea then that we are going to be able to give our children the kind of education they need in the public schools is one that we have to disabuse ourselves of. However, I do advocate going for the whole mashugany, you know. That's right. That's no reason what to back off of it, you see. But to go for as much of it as you can get, because ultimately we should be going for the control of this nation. Yes, yeah. A part of the African-centered education is an education into how we can get so much control and influence in this nation until we can make an African-centered education occur in the public schools. Understand? Is that too much? I get this little thing here. You know. Now, we do realize that the true African-centered education under these conditions require that the most essential portions of that education takes place outside of the public schools. What I'm warning against in particular is this idea that we think that multicultural education in the school removes our responsibility for engaging in the kind of things we're engaging here today. Or we no longer have to teach our children. What we really need to teach them, we cannot put in the public schools, and we should not put in the public schools. That's one of the reasons why I talk about economics at the same time I talk about education. Because what I'm saying is we need the money that we are giving to other people to construct and finance schools so that after our children leave these multicultural public schools, we can teach them in after-school programs, weekend programs, summer school programs, and even some private school programs that give a full education to be fully African-centered. So it becomes a matter of being flexible in using both the public schools, private schools, and cultural institutions more than anything else. Thank you very much for your time.